As we saw some extraordinary carrying on last week when Western Australian mining billionaire Andrew Twiggy Forrest held a news conference with Health Minister Greg Hunt to announce the procurement of medical equipment to fight the coronavirus pandemic. The gear was coming from China. Forrest had helped source it, and he invited the Chinese Consul-General along without checking with the minister. So, just when Beijing was openly threatening Australia over Canberra's call for an independent investigation into the origins of the coronavirus, Twiggy Forrest made sure we got some Chinese propaganda too.
The Chinese government has released information related to the COVID-19 in an open, transparent and responsible manner. We are also doing everything possible to help Australia.
Now, Greg Hunt smoothed it over as best he could, but it was pretty messy.
Very much.
Question for the Consul-General.
We'll do that.
Can we ask a quick question? Just why can't we ask the question?
I think outside.
Why can't we ask the question from the camera? He was happy to give a statement.
Unsurprisingly, when there's a dispute between China and Australia's right, at least some of our media takes Australia's side. And they weren't too impressed with Forrest, who, of course, has made his billions selling iron ore to China.
Andrew Forrest, I've known him for years, but Andrew, go and hide today. Disgraceful stuff. Invited a Chinese diplomat to a news conference with the Health Minister Greg Hunt. And Greg Hunt and us had to listen to this crap. And people are angry. Here's just one of many. Twiggy Forrest is a disgrace, an absolute Judas. And he no longer wears the knockabout Aussie good bloke image he projects. He's a total phony and talking through the lens of his own business interests, and to that end revealed himself to be just another Sam Dastyari, a Beijing propaganda sock puppet.
Now, the Australian newspaper editorialised on this matter, saying that on behalf of the ambassador, the Consul-General had delivered China's propaganda spiel, giving the Central Politburo in Beijing ample footage to splay around its state-controlled media. Forrest had been pushing a line only Beijing would welcome. Prime Minister Scott Morrison had demanded a COVID-19 inquiry, but Forrest found a way to turn the heat away from China and onto the US.
A COVID-19 inquiry worldwide is common sense, but it is not to be a Chinese inquiry. If this is held after the US presidential election, then let's just say there's not going to be a political dog in this fight.
Now, some media was clearly on Forrest's side. The West Australian, owned by fellow West Australian billionaire Kerry Stokes, who also has extensive mining interests, ran with this headline. The story had Stokes himself warning nation won't be able to pay debt if China relations sour. It quoted Stokes saying the Prime Minister should mend relations with China, warning that if Beijing's anger is not quelled, it could have catastrophic consequences for the economy, and that if we're going to go into the biggest debt we've had in our life and then simultaneously poke our biggest provider of income in the eye, it's not necessarily the smartest thing you can do. And on Stokes' 7 network, Forrest had this to say.
Are you interfering with foreign policy by putting the China Consul-General on a media conference?
Sam, I just think that's this is such a non-story. Now, yeah, the minister did walk out looking a bit grumpy and the media's just jumped all over that. It's been amazing to watch. Yeah, he walked out like he meant to walk out, but that had nothing to do with the, with the press conference.
It got a bit awkward.
Sam, this is the biggest beat-up ever.
OK, it got a bit awkward at the end with the Health Minister, but well done.
Then again, of course, the treatment was no tougher over at the competition.
I had the Consul-General up there again. There was no surprises there, mate. This is the biggest non-story ever.
Well, I certainly agree with you, but it seems to have been made into a huge story.
Now, one of our panellists tonight, Jane Marwick, wrote for News Corp papers saying the billionaires get a rails run in the West Australian media. Marwick wrote that the fallout during the week and that front page of the West should raise serious questions about the dissemination of news and the wielding of influence in Western Australia's constrained media. Brave words from a West Australian commentator. Look, there's no doubt we need our exports to China, and we know Western Australia is the powerhouse for these exports. But shouldn't the media be on Australia's side?